Hello, listeners. It's AZ with the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast, and today I'm excited to welcome back a two-time guest, Brian Newman. Brian is with Fort Worth Fire, and I will link his previous episode in the show notes. But Brian and I sat down today. We had a great discussion about anabolics, SARMs, and weight loss drugs. And those things might not sound like they go together, but you are going to love the conversation. We dug into indications, contraindications, complications, and then things that you could do so that you never have to even think about taking these substances. So I know you're going to love the episode. Make sure, scroll down in the show notes, get registered for 7-Minute Science, and share this episode with a firefighter that you know. Thank you for joining me on the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, AZ. I find the research and resources and then provide the fire service with the so what, now what, to ensure the health and well-being of every member of our profession. Together, let's thrive. Ladies and gentlemen, I am back with the one and only Brian Newman. Brian Newman, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, AZ. Appreciate it.
Hey, you know what we're talking about today, right? Shortcuts, but also potentially some things that could help our firefighters. So here's the thing. Firefighters, many of us are sleep deprived. We are overweight. Potentially, we've gotten the news that our testosterone is low, and we're looking for a solution. And I want to talk about the solutions today. Are you ready?
I am. Let's roll with this.
I'm going to let you talk to the listeners about testosterone replacement therapy. Now, we're not talking about I'm getting this from the bro at the gym and shooting up my butt in the locker room. We're talking about the legitimate clinics, finger quotes, legitimate clinics on every corner in every city. What do you think?
Well, even I'm going to add on that. Legitimate clinics even are online. And this came up over the weekend, watching a few months, watching college football games, and we've all seen it. The ad for Hims came on. Well, Hims is now prescribing GLP-1s, which we'll talk about those later, semaglutides. So completely legitimate online clinic. They have marketing, and you can just sit at your computer, meet a physician and I loved how their ad went. It was a nutrition and fitness minded physician that's going to prescribe you for your weight loss. Okay, great. So I want to throw those in there too. So we're going to kind of talk about all of those. This is online, a ways to wellness, they've got great names, and they're basically a borderline concierge medicine. So where we go with this? Really the big thing in this is where we've come in the last 20 years and really even longer. And that is 20 years ago, we're not having this conversation. I mean, I might still try to have this conversation with you, but everybody's going to be, we can't talk about that. That's anabolic steroids. Those are bad. And now we changed the name, called it hormone replacement, and we can talk about it freely. And guys do. They literally walk in and be like, oh, what's your T levels? What's this? What's that? How's that? Oh, my estrogen's way high right now. So it's time to actually sit down and go, what is this stuff? Does it actually help you? And how to utilize it safely. So disclaimer, short and sweet. I'm nor for or against on this presentation for hormone replacement. It's all up to you. It's just giving you, the firefighter, and the listener, the information. Mainly because if you go online and type in hormone therapy, be ready for, it's worse than talking to me. You're just going to have a lot of information. Yes. Put
Brian,
it in easy.
There's nothing worse.
Oh, it's fun talking to me.
I know, it is. I'm just kidding. Continue.
It's fun talking to me. You got to block out a couple hours. So a little bit on this. So we're going to talk about a few things. Anabolic steroids. We're going to talk about SARMs and peptides. Those kind of go hand in hand later on. So anabolic steroids and SARMs, they are synthetic derivatives of the sex hormone, testosterone. You already produce this. Basic, simple. We've known this. Puberty, your testosterone for males goes up, and from then on, the rest of your life, it is slowly just declining. We now get to 30s and 40s, and people are going, hey, I have erectile dysfunction. I feel sluggish. I'm gaining weight. I need to do something about this. Most, and when we get there, and we're talking about the shortcuts as well, most do need to do something about this, but it might not be just running straight to the injection or the pellet or the cream or the pill. So there are clinical risks. There's clinical pathologies that go on with these, and we have to understand how they function in our body and how they interrelate with everything else before we can actually make a decent decision on, is this for me or not? If any of you walk into a clinic right now, if you walk into, we'll call it a low T clinic that are on every corner, next to Dunkin' Donuts, mattress store, the church, and the bank, they're going to, whether you have low testosterone or not, they're going to prescribe you probably testosterone therapy. I would bet my paycheck on it. A, they make money off that. B, there is no acceptable direct number of how much testosterone a male has to say, oh, you have enough. Insurance and some organizations have a range, but there's no number. So if you come in and say they have numbered the low end, most will be about around 200 nanograms per deciliter. Sometimes you'll get them at 300, and even some physicians will be like, oh, 4, you're low. We'll just boost you up a little bit to get you to the 800, 900. You'll feel better. It's all where your body functions best. It could be 800, it could be 900, it could be over 1,000. Hopefully, it's not too far over 1,000, but it could be there. So if you walk in, you're going to probably receive something. I mean, you pay, it's kind of a nice little thing. Welcome to free trade. I pay you something, you give me something in return. Okay. Now, most reputable, hopefully they're going to do some blood work and they're going to check your labs, because we need to make sure mainly that you function properly. So, we want to protect a few things. We want to protect the hypothalamus. We want to protect the pituitary. We want to protect all your organs, but really you start getting down from there, which that's the power plant. The liver and the kidneys, they're important. And so those tend to, if we misuse or overuse, liver and kidney function tend to say bye-bye to us, and they kind of get really cranky. If we drink and you're on hormone therapy, you're just adding to the problem, because your liver's working multiple times harder to clear the toxins. Just think of your liver as, and I'm just going to go back to basic 5th grade science, and that is your liver detoxifies your body. If you put a substance in and your body thinks it's a toxic or poison, alcohol, any medication, that's ibuprofen, vitamins, your liver has to basically break it down. The more your liver works, the more your liver has to run. The longer that plant is running and not getting to rest, the faster it's going to want to wear out. Fairly simple. So we're going to look into some of these. With that, let's talk about a little basic endocrinology so you can understand kind of what's going on. So the main function of the endocrine system that handles hormones, specifically testosterone, we're going to talk about the hypothalamic pituitary testicular axis. So real quick, what it is, it starts in the hypothalamus. That secretes a hormone that basically tells the pituitary to release another hormone. So it's a trickle down effect. That hormone that's released from the pituitary is called luteinizing hormone. And that goes down and basically gets to your testicles and then finds these little cells in your testicles and says, boys, you need to make some testosterone. Yep. And they do. As we age, we make less of that hormone that trickles down. We make less of that follicle stimulating hormone or that luteinizing hormone. So naturally, our testosterone drops. We hit our 30s and 40s, and in some areas, our 20s, and people are like, I need to get on hormone therapy, and I'm 28. I just cringe. Once we start adding that in, so understanding this endocrine, you add this external testosterone in, you're going to slow down the production of your own internal testosterone. So it's not that we probably learned this, and if you're in your 40s or older, you heard it this way, oh, your testicles are going to shrink. You found that one funny, didn't you?
I just spit out my whatever this is on my lap. Thanks, Newman.
You're welcome. No, they're not going to shrink. They're just, think of it like a good old industrial era upper Rust Belt, steel mill. It's just gone offline for a while, and now you got to get them going again. Well, what's that going to take? That's going to take an engineer. That's going to take a lot of workers. It's going to take a lot of things to polish that thing and make it function to actually produce any steel. Well, same thing with your testicles. If we've taken it offline, the longer it's been offline, the harder it is to go. So, understanding these, that's the negative feedback loop. So, negative feedback loop, and I think Mike talked about this, didn't he, a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, he sure
feedback
did.
Loop. Yeah. So, it's the basis for the endocrine system. It recognizes when you have an abundance of any hormone, it recognizes it, and it decreases production of that hormone. So, if we take testosterone, we are going to decrease our production of our testosterone. Why am I spending so much time with this? Because the number one question I get after, should I be on hormone therapy? The number two question is, do I have to be on it for the rest of my life? Well, kind of depends. If you get off, your testosterone levels are going to kind of drop back to where they started at, and potentially drop back farther, because if you've been on hormone therapy or testosterone therapy, however we want to call it, for years on end without doing anything to help stimulate your natural production, you're going to have to get that old Rust Belt steel mill back online.
Newman, talk for a second, because this was pure fire when we had the conversation a couple of days ago. Talk about how the body is always craving homeostasis. First of all, quick, what is homeostasis? And then why does the body crave it?
Homeostasis is the $40 word for your body just wants to find normal.
Yes.
Simple enough. So if we don't, the human body is probably one of the greatest machines out there. It's resilient. We can go without food for days on end. We can go without water for even a couple days and still function. Not well, but can function. Firefighters are proof of this.
Yes, we are.
Minimal water, no sleep. Put something into it. We'll call it a monster, or I'll just give the breakfast of champions, monster and bacon. I'm sure some firefighters done it. I'm sure it's out there. They put monster bacon, and washed it down with a cup of coffee. Well, all three of those are basically not real good for the system, but yet the system will still run. Not great, but it'll run. So homeostasis, basically, I like to say we try to keep screwing up homeostasis and screw up our bodies. If we just let our body be and just kind of naturally come back, it will find normal again. It may take a time. It may go through some processes that are uncomfortable and we don't like, but we will find homeostasis, or we will find that normal. Everything we tend to do, and this is performance, this is everything. We're trying to accelerate or aid in getting back to homeostasis. So understanding that if we get injured, if we rest it and don't do much, we will eventually heal for the most part. We may not heal well, but we will heal. So rehab and all that goes into helping out with the homeostasis or fixing that injury. Does that answer that question?
For sure. And I want to track way back for 1 second because you hinted at it, and I hope I'm not going out of order, but
it's fine.
What can we do instead of just automatically, I need to go to did you like that, Wisconsin? I need to go to the hormone replacement therapy clinic by the Dunkin' Donuts. What can we do to address potentially these low testosterone problems without the clinic? Go.
Without the clinic. Okay. This is going to be we'll call it the big four. The big four, we're going to hit it at the end. Every time I'm allowed to, I guess, speak on this podcast, I'm probably going to remind of the big four. The big four. Number 1, 2, 3, and 4 things we need as firefighters and as just humans in general. Recovery. I'm just going to call recovery is the number one. It's the big overarching. That factors in sleep. If you're sleeping less than 7 or 8 hours a night and not getting enough sleep, I don't care how much hormone therapy you have, it's not going to work as well. It'll work, but not as well. Number two, next biggie for a firefighter, good nutrition habits and lifestyle.
Oh, rats.
Number two, I put that number two for a reason. Because there's the term, you can't out train a bad diet. Sure, I call it playing for the tie. You train really hard and then you don't eat, you eat like crap. You're playing for the tie. You're breaking even. Number three, you want to go on that one?
Keep going.
Okay. Number three, aerobic and resistance training. So it's not one or the other. And it's really, I'm going to throw three in there. It's aerobic and resistance training. It's the three of them. But if I had to cut one out and say, and I hate this game, I hate the game of if you can only pick one thing and you're on a desert island, but if I had to pick one that I could remove and you still could be really well, I would remove anaerobic because I can take your resistance training and turn it anaerobic.
Fair.
So I can do that. And then number four, the biggie, hydration, proper hydration. Like we need water. The body's more than 70% water. If you don't have water and you don't have hydration, you need it. So those would be the big four. Dialing those in first would be honestly very crucial before any hormone therapy. Sure, you can start hormone therapy before that, but how much are you getting the full benefit out of it?
My dad likes to say peeing into the wind.
Yeah, I had a former strength coach that when I was in high school, he liked to say, we were lifting it, so ways pissing in the wind. Yep. That was, you're just doing that. And it still sticks to me to this day.
All right. So we are going to pay attention to our recovery, including our sleep. We are going to pay attention. We're going to be mindful of our nutrition. We are going to do aerobic training, resistance training, and hopefully anaerobic training too. What was the fourth one? Hydration. But you're
such a firefighter. You're such a firefighter still, forgetting hydration. Oh, we're gonna be good on this. But screw it. I ain't drinking any water.
Forget the water. No, I do not forget the water. Okay, we've done all those things, but we've come to the juncture. We need the hormone replacement therapy. So we now know how the sort of negative feedback loop works in our body. How does, this is a broad question, and you can flip me off. How does the injection of the hormone that they give us make us feel better?
That's
and how long does it take?
How long does it take?
Yeah.
Okay. So how long does that take? So once we inject testosterone, we'll call it testosterone cypionate, since testosterone cypionate is the essentially gold standard of what most exogenous testosterone can be. Exogenous, big $50 word for external testosterone. And based on how it's going to be utilized, meaning how much is going to get back. So we inject that. Okay. You can just figure you don't get all of it. So we'll just say you're getting a 200 milligrams of testosterone cypionate per cc unit in your syringe. You don't get all 200 milligrams of testosterone cypionate. Your body just goes, okay, well, there's 200. It doesn't function like that. I wish it did. It'd be nice and simple. It goes in, and we go through a quick process. So that testosterone is bound to an ester, and that ester is basically, it's a chain that pretty much protects it, allows it to last and give it the half-life for its length. And we'll go talk about testosterone cypionate specifically in a little bit. So your body breaks that down, and then it slowly starts to release the testosterone from the muscle where you injected into out into the bloodstream. Goes to the bloodstream, then kind of gets processed, cleaned, goes to the liver, and then starts to go out to cells. So what's it do? It loves lipids. Lipids are fats, so it likes fat cells. So this testosterone is moving around, okay, and it's being carried around by one of three things. Okay. First one is albumin. It gets carried to this albumin. About 50% of it is carried by albumin. Okay. It's polyprotein. It has albumin, has a low affinity and a high binding capacity, meaning it likes it, but it's not its favorite. It'll bind to just about any other hormone as well. So albumin will bind to DHT, estradiol, everything else. So it likes testosterone, so it's going to pick it up. But once it does, it doesn't want to let go of it. Okay. Now another 40 or so, 40 to 50% is going to get bound to sex hormone binding globulin. Okay.
Ooh, I've heard that word before.
Yeah, Mike Connor.
Mike Connor.
He's so smart. He's so smart.
He's so smart.
It has a high affinity but a low binding capacity. So sex hormone binding globulin, it is going to go right towards testosterone. And really, if I split down to it, it likes another version of the testosterone, DHT, dehydrogenase testosterone. So it really likes DHT, but it also likes testosterone as well. So it's going to bind to it, but it won't hold it that well. It's willing to move on. And really the reason it's willing to move on is that's kind of our reserve stores. If testosterone starts to get way low, then sex hormone binding globulin will kind of cleave it off and kind of like break up with it so we can utilize that testosterone.
So we're either married, going steady, or just like casually dating, right? This is what we're talking about.
Much.
Okay.
We're talking about it. And then what we really care about, the 2 to 4%, the singles. The
single testosterone.
Because you get to do anything you want as free testosterone. So free testosterone is exactly what it is. It's free flowing. It's not bound to a protein in the blood, so it can be utilized by cells. So what happens is we'll just say it swims. It's swimming around, falling in your bloodstream. I always have that image in my head, like anything in our body just swimming in blood.
Yeah.
It basically can jump out of it, basically leaves the blood, leaves the vascular structure, loves fat cells, so loves lipid cells. So it all of a sudden finds this lipid cell in the cell wall, and the cell wall, think of that as a bouncer at a club. It just goes, oh, you got free access, come on in. And it lets it in. Okay. Once it gets inside the cell, now I always say, think of inside a cell as a big giant mall. Okay. So now it's on the mall's grounds. It's driving around and it's looking for a parking spot. Okay. The parking spots are the receptors.
Yes.
So as it goes, it's looking for a parking spot with the receptor that says, park your defender here. Okay. It really, and we'll get into these specifically, likes reserve parking spots. Those are androgen receptors.
Ooh.
So it parks there, and then once it parks orders and tells the cell to do something.
So basically, we want to go shopping at Hollister. We're circling for the closest parking spot, and we really want a reserve spot because that's the androgen receptor.
Where did you grow up that you wanted to go shopping at Hollister?
I don't know. I just made that up.
Ulta, it was good, though.
Apple Store.
I mean, I kind of like the Hollister because it's actually better for hormone therapy. Get their super tight t-shirt.
Right. And the odoriferous like cologne they have pumped through there. Anyway, I'm getting you off track. We're parked in the spot.
We're doing well.
We're parked in the spot.
And then it tells it to do something. And at that point, that's when it goes down, reaches the cells, and those cells basically, now it will, I'm going to move back. It will find these cells and say, hey, we need to increase basically muscle tissue, or we need to increase bone density, or we need to increase cartilage. So these are all the things, or it will act to synthesize protein. So now we increase nitric oxide in that cell, big word, lovely. And that increased nitric oxide will allow us protein synthesis. So now we can break down protein into amino acids and utilize them as building blocks to rebuild that muscle bigger or more dense or stronger. Exactly. And so hence This is how hormone therapy actually helps for recovery, but also hypertrophy, cosmetic, strength. It all depends. Well, really, at the end of the day, after you have the hormone therapy, it all depends on what the nutrition is.
Brian, this sounds so great. I think this sounds fantastic. Why would I ever not want to go get myself some hormone replacement therapy? Why not?
Yeah. It's risk reward. It really is, because everybody's different. 100% risk reward.
Why
So
are you laughing at me? That was a great question.
it was just the way you asked the question. It was just so like, why would I not? Like, lead me into this. No. So every human is different. So if somebody takes testosterone, they're gonna respond. For the most part, we have a very predictable way, but that doesn't mean everybody's going to respond that way. So a lot of things that we get with hormone therapy or testosterone supplement specifically, it's going to increase the amount of androgen receptors in the cells. So now you have more parking spots. So more parking spots, more ability to grow and repair. It's a good thing.
That sounds
More
fantastic.
right. More parking spots, more ability to grow and repair. Keyword ability. If I don't add protein or have proper nutrients, I don't grow. Muscle breaks down more. If I add a lot, I grow. That's a good thing. But like anything in this country, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. If I grow outside of my actual natural frame, and I won't get too far down this, think of it scaffolding, my bone structure can't keep up with that muscle mass. And now we have a lot of extra mass or weight, mainly in extracellular water, because that will increase on my chest. Well, what's in my chest? My cardiovascular system. It makes it harder to breathe. It puts stress and strain on it. Bad thing. Okay.
Bad.
So specifically, it also is going to increase your red blood cell count. At first glance, increased red blood cell count, not horrible. Okay. That might give us actually a little bit more increased endurance and more oxygenated blood potential. But that increased red blood cell count is just more red blood cells in the same vascular space. So you might get improved recovery for a while, but after a time, those red blood cells keep adding up, and it just thickens everything up. So now we're going to talk about hemoglobin, your hemoglobin and hematocrit, those numbers that we get on our blood tests. They start to rise. So they start to rise, your blood's too thick. Your blood's too thick, blood can't move through, and now all of a sudden we have a heart attack, or we have coronary blockage. You add poor diet, high cholesterol, and you get that plaque built up, that low density cholesterol, and now the ability for the vessel to stretch or morph enough, it just becomes a very rigid pipe. And now we add bound up red blood cells. Things aren't going to go through, blood clot or complete blockage, and you go down. So everything you were doing was for recovery or health, or so you thought, and cosmetically or being stronger, and you now get to have angioplasty and spend the next 3 months doing cardiac rehab with me and you have no strength, because we start out at, guess what, walking a floor for 10 minutes and you're gassed.
No one wants to do cardiac rehab with Newman.
Oh, it's fun. It really is fun. Everything's fun with me.
You mentioned too the LDL. Does taking the testosterone replacement therapy, can that impact our lipids?
Oh, look at you leading in with the great leading question. Does it impact our lipids? Yeah. So any steroid, whether it's corticosteroid, so prednisone, something we take for inflammation, all the way to an anabolic androgenic steroid, testosterone, any of these others, they're going to predominantly lower HDL, the good cholesterol, and increase LDL, the unwanted cholesterol.
Bastards.
Along with that, it's going to increase your blood pressure.
No, thanks.
So slightly increased blood pressure, most of us, we probably run with a slightly increased blood pressure. It increased a little bit more. But if, let's follow the storyline, we get on hormone therapy, we're going to stay on this probably for a period of time or until we become geriatric and we're just like, it's not worth it anymore. And I don't need any testosterone or need minimal testosterone for what we say. Well, if our blood pressure is constantly elevated, it just weakens the vascular structures of the vascular walls. So now we have blowout potential, but also we get it to where it's not pliable anymore. That vascular structure has no collagen and keratin in it, and that smooth muscle isn't able to actually really move. It becomes rigid. So you have that. You have an increase in, I talked about the increase in extracellular water. So we have two types of water in the body: intracellular within the cell, extracellular outside of the cell. So hormone therapy, high sodium, extremely high sodium, all of these poor things, diabetes mellitus or diabetes type 2, metabolic syndrome, these all will start to increase extracellular water. So an increased extracellular water is going to imbalance electrolytes. So if you're unhealthy, you're already predisposed, if you're not hydrated well, to having electrolyte imbalance. And most people think like they're going to wash out. No, they don't actually wash out. I mean, they do, but these are the highly trained, long duration. Most of the firefighters, that electrolyte imbalance is actually, it's there, it just can't be utilized within the cell. So it's not, so here's the funny thing. Most people, oh, I need to take, a element or a drip drop or, fire salt or something like that. They take it. They don't drink enough water with it, or they drink what they think is enough water. They already have the electrolytes. It's just imbalanced. It's not electrolyte, it's not negative electrolytes. It's imbalanced electrolytes. So you just added more electrolytes, and they're just hanging outside the cell. They still can't do anything. They can't get in the club.
I'm going to call it electrolyte soup. What do you think?
I like it.
Electrolyte soup outside the cell. So what I'm hearing from you, because I want to make sure and get to the SARMs and to the weight loss drugs, what I'm hearing from you is risk versus reward. Different people react differently to the therapy, and we want to make sure and assess, not guess. We want to make sure that we're getting blood work and we're doing all of the things that we need to do to keep ourselves healthy while we're doing it. Did I sum it up?
You summed it up, and even I hadn't even gotten into the assess, not guess of be on your lab work. Be a lab work hawk. I mean, understanding, you don't need to understand your lab work down to the minute, like, details. Like, hopefully your physician, there's a lot of great information on lab work out there, and what all of these different tests mean and what are normal ranges. Now, keep in mind, lab work ranges, it differs by the lab you do it at. It also differs. Those ranges are generalization studies over years and years and years, and they're constantly changing and trending of what a norm average is in the population. So if it says it's high, it could be high. If you're just outside the norm range and high, it doesn't mean you need to throw up the panic flag and go, oh my, I got to do something. It's what's the trend doing? So is it a one-off? Okay, I'd pay attention to it. My first question I'd ask is, what am I doing that could elevate that or could drop that test, make it poor? Oh, I need to probably adjust that. Maybe I'm doing too much of something. Maybe I'm not doing enough. Maybe I'm not balanced enough. Okay. But a constant, lab work after lab work, I recommend if you're on hormone therapy, you probably should be doing lab work no less than 3 times a year. No less. Ideally, cough up the money and do it at least 4 times a year. Every 3 months, you should be getting labs probably ran. I would hope your hormone clinic would run them that frequently. I would hope your hormone clinic, if you came in and requested, could we run labs, would oblige and say, no problem. They're just going to charge you. It's just money. And so you can get a norm. Now, you want to keep everything balanced. Same with hormone therapy. The goal is not ride a roller coaster and get these highs and lows. The goal is to increase that hormone level and stabilize it. So hence why you want to stay on it, why you'll be on these for a long period of time. Why most physicians and hormone clinics will say, well, once you start, you're on it forever type thing. You're not on it forever. You can come off of it. There's a lot of really unsavory side effects that you'll have to go through, but especially if you've been on it for a while, but you can come off of it and still, most people can still function. I think, we don't know, but I think somebody that might be on hormone therapy for 20 plus years, yeah, I'm going to say their testes are not really producing much endogenous testosterone anymore.
They're just little and tired.
They're just in a wheelchair, coughing with emphysema, just trying. They're just trying to survive.
Your analogies are the best. Yeah. Also, I do not want to derail you, but I just have to say, you are filling up that entire screen. You are so wide right now.
Sorry. I mean, I did, like, I didn't do it on purpose. I did say I was coming from the gym. I was finishing up. And so I haven't had a chance to like clean up or anything. So it's like, I have the gym pump tank on, the hat. Like I look like bro douche right now. And I fully know it.
All right, Newman, we are staying on track. I took us off track just for a second.
It's okay.
I had never heard of.
So you want to talk about SARMs?
I do. I'd never heard of this term before I had the conversation with you, and so I have a feeling maybe the listeners haven't heard of it either. So I want to know the good, the bad, and the fugly.
SARMs. SARMs have been becoming more and more popular. They've been around. Honestly, they've been around 15 plus 20 years. They've just were way more quiet and not as mainstream, not readily right in your face. More recently, they become readily right in your face to the point of a lot of health clinics, especially online ones, are almost promoting them as a safe alternative. So what a SARM is a selective androgen receptor modulator. This is the super duper reserve parking spaces.
Oof.
So if we think of testosterone, it just wants an androgen receptor. Well, androgen receptor is in this title, okay, but it will park, a hormone will park in other receptors. Okay. A SARM, or a selective androgen receptor, only is going to park in the specific space that it was given. So it is going to a football game, an NFL football game, and you have a specific space 19C in lot B. It's only going to park in that space. So why they're touted as safer, they have potentially less side effects. They don't interrupt other parts of the endocrine system per se. Okay. But they still do. There's still an external substance coming in. So they've increased the popularity. They have similarities to anabolic steroids or peptides. Peptides being human growth hormone, human chronic gonadotropin, IGF-1. These are all peptides. Peptides are basically short chain proteins that your body makes. And so a SARM will either mimic that, human growth hormone specifically, or more commonly, or some form of anabolic steroid like testosterone. One big thing, their androgenic activity is weaker. So if you think of anabolic and androgenic, anabolic is more of that muscle growth. Androgenic is the male characteristics, the deepening of the voice, acne, the prostate issues, male pattern baldness, all of those things. So SARMs tend to not activate androgens as the androgenic activity. They tend to only function on the anabolic. Yeah. So they don't get metabolized into DHT. That's a plus. So DHT, usually big two it messes with prostate and male pattern baldness. So that's technically a positive. But what ends up happening is they still bind to these receptors. They still create these cascades or these side effects. So they still run through the same endocrine system. They still run through the HPTA axis and have a negative feedback loop. More often than not, a SARM is just telling your body to produce more of something. If you think of, we'll just use testosterone. I'm giving my body testosterone. I'm literally putting testosterone into my system. A SARM, like a specific one that we do this is called RAD 140. It will tell the hypothalamus to produce more enzyme to tell the pituitary to release follicle stimulating hormone. So it's just telling it to, hey, turn on, work, versus I'm just giving it to it. Once again, why marketing can say they're safer. You're not actually taking testosterone. You're taking a SARMs sometimes get mislabeled as a pro-hormone. If you think back to the early 2000s, pro-hormones that got banned. Pro-hormones, some of them have become SARMs and some of them just went away. A SARM is similar to a pro-hormone. We're just potato. It's all the same to me because you're still taking something into your system that your system doesn't necessarily want because it's trying to create homeostasis anyways, and you're trying to add to it. And so it's going to force it to do more to get back to homeostasis. Where these came out of, most of them are experimental research drugs. So these usually, and I'm going to say this and everybody's going to be like, oh God, they're horrible. And yeah, they're not great. But I wouldn't say that they're the most horrible thing on the planet. These are failed, usually drug experiments. And by failed, I do mean like the pharmaceutical company was testing this for one use and they realized it's not doing that, but they found, hey, it's beneficial for 4 or 5 off-label things. And they kind of shelved it for a while because, well, it's probably not going to make them billions of dollars as a pharmaceutical, but it's still a pretty good, decent thing. Let's put some effort into this. So the research chemists kind of go back to the drawing board, work with it, and all of a sudden they find, oh, it doesn't stop. It's not a male infertility drug, but it does do a really good job of increasing testosterone. So they kind of play with it and send it off. I like to think of this as like the B team at the pharmaceutical company. It's kind of like when you go into Hooters on a Wednesday at noon and you get the C team. I kind of think of the pharmaceutical company the same way. It's like, oh, we're gonna give this to the B team over here. It's like this bootleg, like building off the side, like just with like rabbits with 7 legs and fish with 20 eyes. Yeah, I kind of imagine that, and they're playing with these, going, "Hey, this works." So what happens is they're easily accessible because these get reproduced. So it's not that the pharmaceutical company actually pumps them out. It's every underground lab, every compounding lab. They start to notice this, they start to see it, and they make it themselves. And now it can be sold or compounded by a compounding pharmacy and turned into a SARM and sold as research use or experimental. So it can still be sold. It's legal to be sold if they put that on it, and it can be purchased if you're using it for a research grade. But there's no organization really kind of policing that, saying, oh, you're not using that for research. So we have access to them.
On the internet, or like just out of curiosity, I want to get myself some nice, fresh set of SARMs. Where do I go?
Honestly, internet, on these online health clinics, even as much as you're probably not going to see at your national chain supplement stores, like a GNC or a Vitamin Shop, probably won't see it there. But your local supplement stores, or your smaller franchise, one that I can think of, and they're just small franchise. Max Muscle has a franchise. Well, those are locally owned. If the supplement shop owner knows a compounding pharmacy, he's carrying it in his supplement store. So you could walk in, and once again, we go back to, I'll talk about it like it's Dazed and Confused, the movie. We go back to the 1970s of, you just walk in, and a 16-year-old kid, if the person behind the counter doesn't care, is going to turn around and sell them a SARM. They're not IDing him a question, be like, hey, you probably shouldn't take this. I would hope they would, but they're probably not. And so most of them are behind the counter in a case because they're expensive. Well, expensive compared to some supplements, but they're readily accessible.
So on the SARMs, is it just risk versus reward again?
100%. And honestly, I would, if you're asking me straight up, like if I had to pick one or the other, I definitely would probably lean away from the SARMs because they tend to be a little bit more counterfeited. There's no regulation whatsoever on them. And so what can be in them is not necessarily always in them. A study done in 2017 that was looking at 44 different SARMs, 39% of those contained an unapproved compound. So they're putting something in there that was already banned by the FDA.
If
Almost 10% detected no compound whatsoever.
that's the kind of business I need to be in, manufacturing nothing and selling it for a lot of money.
Doing the old oregano dime bag trick.
Something like that.
25 quarter of them had a substance that weren't even on the label. And then almost 60% of them produced a compound that differed from what they put on the label. So, and then had a 40% difference on the actual quantity. So there's no regulation. They can just put them out. These are large enough companies that there's no quality assurance.
Yeah.
So the nice thing about testosterone when we get down to it is testosterone is very easily manufactured. It's readily manufactured. So it's not a hormone that is going to be bunked or counterfeit very often. It still can be, depending on where if you're trying to go off and go completely black, off the books, black market, sure, buyer beware all you want. But a hormone clinic there's no reason their compounding pharmacy is going to have counterfeit testosterone. It's too cheap to produce. Versus SARM, it's not necessarily expensive to produce, but there's nobody at the back end of that. What are you going to do? If you buy a SARM that's research grade, there's nobody to cry to when you're like, this didn't work. The supplement store owner or the online, they don't care. What are you going to do? Cry to the FDA? Like, hey, I was using something that I wasn't supposed to use, and I wasn't supposed to use it for this at all, and it doesn't work. I want my money back.
I was doing research, and the research didn't work. Newman. All right. Are you ready to talk about weight loss drugs? Because I'm ready.
Yeah. Let's talk about some weight loss drugs.
So when I used to have cable, which has been a long time, mostly the Firehouse is where I would see it. I would hear it like, oh, Ozempic. And it's just like the answer to everyone's prayers. But
it's not.
I think that just like all this other stuff you talked about, there's risk versus reward. Am I correct?
100%.
Oh my God. I love it when I'm right. Let's talk about weight loss 100%. Drugs. Let's go.
Weight loss drugs. Right now, you caught me on a fun day. The ultimate in shortcuts. So, are they beneficial? Yeah. Do we have an obesity issue in this country? Horrendously. Mm-hmm. Moo-moos are the predictor of childhood obesity. If you have fat parents, the kid's probably fat.
Oh, I was like, what? Okay, I get it. Yes, you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with. And if those 2 of those 5 people happen to be your parents, yeah.
Yeah. So what are these? These are specifically GLP-1s. So glutide, which stands for a glutide-like protein. Essentially, they have similarities. We're going to keep this real simple. Similarities to type 2 diabetes medication, like metformin or insulin, but they don't function the same way at all. So they help out. They're going to help out with insulin sensitivity. They're going to help out with storing body fat. So trying to not allow body fat. So it slows this gastric emptying, and it prevents the glycogen from storing and increasing this extra adipose tissue. So it decreases your hunger by increasing what's known as leptin in your gut. So it gives you this feeling of satiety. So you don't want to eat as much. And then it helps basically that insulin sensitivity. You start dropping weight. So along with all of this, there's a little sidebar to it. It increases a little bit of metabolic demand, which increasing metabolic demand, you're going to increase. Metabolic demand is essentially using energy in your body to actually just do stuff. So you have to pay a debt. It's like paying a toll every day to use your body. So there's metabolic demand. It's going to increase that metabolic demand. So it will increase core body temperature just a little bit, and which will make us burn more calories at times. It utilizes proteins and carbohydrates better. So there's a couple different types. The problem with this, it's not very specific on the weight loss, meaning it doesn't, well, it does care, because I think it cares to the point where it wants to burn muscle tissue or muscle cell, utilize muscle and break it down to amino acids and pyruvate more, but it's just going to burn carbohydrates, fats, proteins. Does not matter. But it does matter in the fact of it's going to pick the path of least resistance. So fats are very rarely an energy source that is wanting to be utilized for as energy or broken down. Usually it's carbohydrates and proteins are the top. So if this is pulling from stores, it's going to go the easier way. Proteins, muscle. So most on the semaglutides, if we're not doing any preventative, like taking the initiative and have a good diet or properly exercise or get enough sleep, this is the bobblehead doll that you see. This is the actors or actresses when you haven't seen them, all of a sudden now you see them on TV and their head looks like it's 10 times bigger and they're just bouncing around because they literally just, if you look underneath, their skin's going to be loose. It's going to be saggy because the collagen and keratin hasn't caught up, but they've just dropped a ton of weight and upwards of, Ozempic and Wegovy. So Ozempic and Wegovy are basically very similar drug. Ozempic is used for type 2 diabetes. Wegovy is for the weight loss. So they created Wegovy for that weight loss side. You just drop weight. So we lose skeletal muscle. So now you're just walking around. Yeah, your body fat dropped, but you lost lean body mass. And when it comes to weight, everybody can have their own opinions. I'm going to say, at least my opinion, because of basically the anthropologist in me and the nutritionist and dietitian. Weight's important. Body comp's important. How much our body fat's important. But what's more important is our lean body mass. Because our lean body mass is actually what's going to move us. It's actually what's going to burn the calories. So, yes, it's great that your body fat's dropping. But if your lean body mass is dropping too, then I'm playing for the tie. If my diet's poor and I'm taking Wegovy, then the Wegovy is just playing for the tie. I'm basically taking it so I can eat like shit. And it's not cheap.
Newman, I always say I wouldn't mind weighing 400 pounds as long as I was like 8% body fat.
Hormone therapy.
Well, it's important because I heard this somewhere, I don't know what, but it's like lean tissue, muscle tissue is your insurance policy against disease and dysfunction. Mm-hmm. And so it's wonderful that people are losing weight, but when you look like a bobblehead, I have to start. Hi, Jess. Oh my God, you guys, Jess is on. Everyone say hi. Okay, the listeners are like, hi, Jess. No, just tell her we all said hi. Jess is Brian's wrangler, and she really needs to be on the show with him. But
we'll do it. We will have the co-show. We're gonna have to come up with the topic like that. Firefighters care about college athletics.
No, it'll be fantastic.
No, so what we're saying,
I want to tie these together. Like, I want to tie these ideas together because firefighters don't feel good. They don't put in the work necessarily to sleep, nutrition, training, hydration, remembered it. They don't necessarily put in that work, and they're looking for that Like, what can I do to make me feel better? They walk into these hormone replacement therapy clinics, and it's like a buffet, because these same clinics are also peddling the weight loss drugs. And what
Mhm.
I see, unfortunately, is that along with the weight loss drug, they're not getting the education. That could be like just my snapshot of it, but that's the issue.
I,
That's my problem.
I think they're getting some education. I don't think they're getting a lot of education. I also don't think, and I'm not going to go get too far up in the weeds and climb up on this monster soapbox. But I think the education isn't coming from also the best place. I think they have good intentions, but you know, your mentor Jay Dawes said it. I said it. I think the best people or the best education aren't in the weight loss clinics. They're not at these therapy clinics, because why am I going to work there? You're not going to pay me what I'm worth to work there to educate these people. I'm going to keep making myself better over here.
Yeah.
Well, not everybody has access to a Jay Dawes or to myself or to a Mike O'Connor or to all these specialists that are studying this and live and breathe this. So it's just watered down information, which is still not bad. At least it's information. But then when you get it watered down, and then all I'm there for is, I don't want to be fat anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to work out. They just want to get prescribe me whatever,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
make me feel better.
Yes.
And so they're not even listening. So they don't even want to have, it's almost like they're almost turned off. They're not completely turned off to the education. They're not completely like closed minded, like I don't want to learn anything. But that's not what they remember. What they remember is, oh, I got to take this every morning on an empty stomach, 2.4, 2.4 deciliters. Okay, let me stick an intramuscular injection of Wegovy and do that weekly. Or I got to tell my revitalists every day. That's what they remember. They're not remembering, what I need to eat a good diet or have a balanced diet. And then what is a balanced diet? What is that for them?
Right.
Because that can be off. So it always comes back to all parties involved, all stakeholders involved have to have not only the best intentions, because intentions are great. I mean, I could screw somebody up and be like, oh, I had the best intentions, but I still screwed them up. At the end of the day, I still messed up. I still gave them bad information. Oh, I had the best intentions.
Right.
They had the best intentions. It's the correct answers. It's what meets them. And if anything, in all of my if all of my conversations on any platform, I think the one thing I want every listener to understand is every one of us is our bodies function differently. So what works for one person is probably going to work in some capacity for another person, but maybe not at the same level. And maybe not at the same efficacy. So, and our bodies are smarter than us.
Yes.
They find a way, they're going to find a way to function. The human body is designed to survive.
In spite of us.
Right? It's 100% designed to survive. So if we cut calories, and this, I'm not going to get too far from this, if we cut calories, our metabolism naturally will want to slow down because I call it snake dieting, because it thinks I'm only going to get food once a week. So I need to conserve energy to live. So it slows down, and then we eat less and less calories, and then we are fatigued, and then we have no energy. Oh, and then we're not sleeping well, so we got less energy, and we have less recovery. And then we're shocked at, like, man, I'm not losing any weight. I don't understand why I'm not getting stronger. Because you eat one meal. You eat one meal a day. Yeah, that one meal is not designed to fuel us. And there's a difference between fueling and eating and nutrition for performance.
Yes.
The performance
Which
is the key, and that's where
we are not going to go down that rabbit hole today.
no, but the performance is the key for a firefighter. Firefighters have to perform.
Newman.
So you need to eat. You need to do all of these things.
Do you realize something?
We did this in under an hour.
You guys, we did it in under an hour. And there's
Can I tell them?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you listen to this morning's podcast, and AZ said we had technical difficulties recording, and said it was with me. I actually was the technical difficulty.
Newman was the technical difficulty.
I recorded 2.5 hours of content on Friday to the point where I broke her editing software, and it wouldn't allow editing down to get to an hour for you guys. So we physically had to repackage this, and I had to re-record an hour of content so it could be edited and cleaned up for presentation. So I am a technical difficulty.
Newman is a technical difficulty, and I might just add 2 different things. He was talking about Leydig cells. Ain't nobody caring about the Leydig cells, Newman. And Ricardo the landscaper started mowing
mowing your lawn
and blowing and weed whacking. It was just the comedy of errors. But
I do need to say that's not a euphemism. You might want to clarify that.
Newman, I think we're gonna drop the mic. And after we drop the mic, you're gonna go get Jess so I can say hi. So are you ready?
Yep, you can drop the mic. But before we go, if any of the listeners do have questions on this or want to know more, to reach out to me, I will gladly waste two hours of their time talking to them about high levels of endocrinology and hormone therapy, to the point where they can hang up on me. But it is available to them. Anytime
you call Newman, block out 2 to 3 hours. I will put your contact information in the show notes. AZ and Brian Newman are officially out.